Dwayne, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. So glad to be here. I feel special. I'm getting invited back. That means something.
That does mean something. Yes, you didn't get canceled the first time around.
All those people that I told, please go in and click that and report it. They did that, so that's why I'm back again.
You got crowdsourced to get back on with all the popularity.
Awesome.
So I wanted to dive deeper into a topic. You are a mentor of mine, my personal coach. And something that I learned from your organization a long time ago was there's no mission without margin.
Yeah.
And that struck me, especially as I've coached now thousands of advisors, that I think that's misunderstood. I think a lot of business owners want to give back. It's not just about their personal income, but I think there's a disconnect at times of making decisions as a business owner that are not ideal or optimal in order to give back. And how should those relate to each other? So I'd love if before we dive into that, you give your background, because I think it's important, all the experiences you've had before you speak into this topic.
Glad to. The journey I've been on, I got a chance to start my business life in healthcare. Actually started in retail because I started at a place called Stone and Thomas. It was a department store. I was the bag guy that brought bags out to each of the locations. But anyway, got a master's in health administration, got into healthcare, was in Baptist healthcare system in Kentucky. Did that for 5 years before moving to Nashville, specifically Franklin, getting to be the CEO of an orthopedic group that's phenomenal and been a great part of this community for a lot of years. Got called from my role in healthcare to a role in the church, what I call my soul care career. So I spent 13 years in a soul care career after spending 12 years in healthcare. As executive pastor of a church here in Middle Tennessee that just went great guns, and lots of growth and lots of ministry was happening over those 13 years, and would have stayed there till I retired, except I felt a call back to the workplace. I really felt called to minister to leaders like you, Sten, who are out there trying to live out not only a good ethic, but a godly ethic, a godly purpose for their lives. And so wanting to come alongside and support them. So been doing that now for 8 years in C12 in my capacity as a C12 chair. Essentially, I get to facilitate peer groups of CEOs that are serving each other by being supportive to each other and challenging each other to be everything that God's imagined them to be. That's a much higher dream and expectation than our own. So that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that experience. I've been a C12 member for 7 years now, maybe 8. Is that I think we are all called higher to something that we can't understand yet.
Yeah.
And I think there's realizations constantly of what that can look like. And so I appreciate that, every month we sit in that process together. And I've learned now that it's never easy. It's never done.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's times where we've worked through some stuff together and it's like, hey, we did it. And then something else, we never have a shortage of things to talk about when we have our coaching meetings. On the topic of mission without margin, there was a time where I felt I couldn't be this intense, super successful entrepreneur and at the same time be a mission oriented. That on this spectrum, if you cared the most, you worked in a nonprofit, or on the other side, all you care about is money and you buy and sell companies or optimize your systems. Profit is the main driver and indicator of success. And I've learned more being around you, like there is something in the middle.
Yeah. Well, it's actually both and. That God's actually given us businesses to steward. And it is in the ministry of doing that stewardship well. It's in the ministry of, I think C.S. Lewis said, if you're going to be a cobbler, be an excellent cobbler, right? So that your witness so your work is a witness to people who are watching. So it's the same concept, right? That not that our mission is over here, and our work is over here, but they're actually together is a key concept that we like to bring forward. And then no mission, no margin is just to remind us we're called to run excellent companies, to make them healthy in every aspect. And so we use a tri-value model to describe that. And a part of that is economic value add. Is it a healthy business? Is it not only providing for the employees, is it fulfilling the purposes that the business exists to the clients? And then is it a positive impact on the community? And so you can't be those things without having a strong economic going concern.
I run into it as I coach advisors that if they're young, they're like, I just want to help my peers. And so therefore I'm going to help them with the basics of financial planning. And my goal is to help kids get to college or fund their Roth IRA for the first time. The challenge with that is like, it sounds really good, but you don't make any money. Like, and at the end of the day, you may be a great advisor that doesn't stay in business. And as I've challenged them, I'm like, what if you develop your skills and learn to add so much value in the marketplace to the people that are willing to pay a lot for it? And then in turn, you hire somebody full-time on your team to deliver free financial plans to college students. Like, is there a way to accomplish the mission and run a really successful business?
Yeah. Yes.
What do you see in other industries? Because you have access to a lot of them. That's what I see as advisors almost shooting themselves in the foot by taking the mission stand almost a little too strong and at the cost of a healthy business. Do you see that in every industry?
Sure. I think that's easy to look across the other industries and identify the same kind of, I'm going to call it a limited mindset that, I have to give I either have to give everything away for free or I go over here and I make a bunch of money, as opposed to kind of this blended approach that says, I create a healthy business and do the things that as you're describing, find willing buyers for a good product and good service and match those together such that I create a healthy business. What is I was thinking about this earlier. What's a healthy stock that we invest in? Well, it's one that's growing, right? It's increasing in value. Why isn't a business the same way? A business is something we invest a lot into. How do we create it so that it's healthy, has strong margin, and then you can begin to fulfill at greater levels your purpose. So I do have to bide my time on that. That doesn't happen overnight. So I've got to build a successful business model, and then simultaneously, I'm tithing my time. I'm giving portions of my time to help fulfill that inner calling that I have. Right. I have a healthy business that I can be over here serving people who don't have the capacity yet to financially give back, right, in that equation. And so I'm going to serve them, but I'm going to have to serve them at a smaller fraction than I serve the whole.
Is there a progression you experience as people join C12 or even start thinking this way? Is the initial shock of like, oh, I've been doing it wrong all along? Or is it, okay, I recognize there's a path to accomplish both, but now I have to make a bunch of changes and different choices in order to optimize my business, so then in turn I can accomplish the mission?
I don't think there's a specific path, but what I do see is kind of an awakening. We talked about it before on a previous podcast, but there's an awakening of, wait, other people are doing this. I think maybe I could do this, right? So it's just first I see somebody else succeeding at it, and I'm like, if they can do that, maybe there's a way for me to do this. And I begin to try components of, in this case, components of how do I grow the business so that it actually is a healthy margin, and what does a healthy margin look like? How do I not make a margin my focus? Because I think that's at the core of what we're afraid of. Is once I taste margin, I'm just going to want more. And it's like drinking salt water, expecting your thirst to go away. There's a point at which there's not enough profit that I can gain to really satisfy me. So if I'm afraid of that becoming a nuisance or an issue for me, then I may be a little bit reluctant to make that happen. And then what happens is, as I create a successful company, I benchmark it to other companies that are also successful and go, well, that's what a healthy margin looks like. This is what surplus and excess looks like. And what do I do with that? Right? It's what do I do with the wealth that God gives me that becomes a crucial question there. So once I get comfortable that I can grow a healthy business, then I get to begin to explore, wow, what am I uniquely placed in this industry for, in this community for, that's going to have a magnificent impact, maybe on an individual, maybe on a whole group of people, but I want to invest myself in that. Now I have resources to invest, right? So I built them up simultaneous to nurturing. I think there's a simultaneous effect. I'm building the company to be healthy, right, and to run it in ways that honors God in the ways that I do it, and then I'm also simultaneously nurturing my appetite or nurturing my passion for we like to say, what breaks God's heart that breaks my heart. What's God passionate about that I'm passionate about, and I want to make that kind of an impact. So I get to hold both simultaneously.
How do you approach? I think purpose drives everyone. I know in our story, in my personal faith in Jesus and as a Christian, that's my story. I think you interact with business owners, a lot of different stories and faith journeys. Is the purpose piece, because there's probably people listening now that are like, my faith is not a driving factor. Maybe I'm curious. Maybe I know there's something more than just myself. I just haven't put words to that. How do you explain like the purpose drive in all of this? Like, I think it's there.
Yeah.
Some of us may not
passion.
be as obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it best comes out of most people as a passion. When I see something on TV, it makes me angry and I want to participate in something to make that better. Right. When I see injustice, I want to make it right. When I see brokenness, I want to bring healing. Right. So there's something in me, regardless of whether we acknowledge that God's having an influence on my life, he's having an influence on my life, right? And things break God's heart that breaks my heart, whether or not I believe in him or not. We have a shared passion around that. And I think helping people unpack that is really fun, regardless of where they're at faith-wise, right? Because I get to go, okay, what's the thing that stirs in you? Maybe it stirs your wife and it stirs you. Because a lot of times God will align us with our spouse and we're actually both burdened about the same thing. And there's power in that leverage. Two can pull more than one, right? So there's power in that. So I think helping people discover what am I passionate about, and it can come from, list out the things that are broken in our society, in our culture, in our community, and which ones, if you could only devote one day this month to something, which one would you devote yourself to? And I think that's a way that's to start or revealing in us that thing that I think is a God piece. It's something God put us, and he said, I want you to not be okay with injustice in this way. And so that's the way I'm made, right? Does that answer your question?
It does. With you having kind of the church experience, the business experience, how old were you when your heart was broken for the first time? Like that you were able to say, this is a thing that I'm called to battle.
Wow, that's a good question. I know I can trace it back to college and just the work that I did in college to begin to connect with things that burden my heart. One of them is marriage. So I know marriage for me came in the first couple of years of our marriage, probably the third year of our marriage, when we were in a couples group and an older couple that was in the group, not like older than us, 10 years older than us, divorced suddenly. And it came out kind of the issues and the things that were going on in the relationship that made it unhealthy and why they divorced. And it wrecked me. It wrecked me when I realized there was something that here was somebody close to me, near me, that had I known they needed help, I would have reached out and helped. But none of us in our close relationships were having authentic kind of conversations to where those kind of things could come up. And so that's the first kind of wrecking. I was wrecked by it. Like, this will never happen again on my watch. I'll never be so unintentional with relationships that are close to me that I don't know that that's about to come down. Now, it's not my job to fix that, but it is my role as a friend to be close enough to go, hey, what's up? Have you considered other options? If your marriage is unhealthy, what are you doing to make it healthy? So because we're doing, by the way, this small group the group of friends that I was with, we're in Bible studies together. We were in church together. That's what our connection was. And this was still happening because, again, we had this closed nature that was going on. And so once I saw the impact of that wrecked me to the point that I'm like, I gotta make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And so as a result, today, my wife and I are involved in marriage mentoring through our church. And we sit with couples and we help them just process what's it mean to be one and not two individuals. And so we help people work on that.
Do you find with a lot of entrepreneurs, they go through their kind of warrior phase where it's about kind of the grind, building a business, trying to not stress out about money every day. And it's once they come out of that and are kind of settled that they ask these questions and think about being more generous and giving back. We have some mutual friends that are pretty young, successful, and pretty aggressive about giving. I don't know if that's what I experience in the workplace as much, though.
I think it's latent, meaning if you have been in that warrior zone for a while, you've had to suppress those emotions and those feelings and those things because there's not an outlet for it. That's the opportunity that's before most business owners is when they do have people working in their business and they're in the warrior phase where they're just coming in somewhat punching the clock, getting the work done and going home. How do we invite them into passion exploration? How do we help them untap that? In fact, the data shows, and I can't quote you the report, but the data shows that when they look at why people stay with organizations, one of the number one reasons is they've helped me be connected to higher purpose than myself. Right? So people are so purpose oriented that pay is important, benefits are important, but purpose has got to be there. I've got to know the why behind what we're doing. And when I do, I stay longer. I'm more engaged, right? Even if I know that, hey, we're going to do this work over here that has nothing to do with this ministry or mission work that we're going to do. But because we do this, we're going to have the capacity to do this. We're going to be able to work one day a month in this area of passion. And it may not be your passion, but that's part of you exploring. Part of what is beautiful about the church as a body is, and they do multiple mission things in and through the organization, is people get a chance to taste and see what's the thing that I'm most passionate about. So I think we have that opportunity in business too. And so those warrior mode folks, right, that you're talking about, again, I'm going in every day and I'm plowing the fields and planting seeds and watching it grow and doing the harvest. And that's just the normal cycle of what becomes work, but it's latent in me. It's still there. It's why we could then go home and watch adventure movies and, romance movies to see what a perfect marriage is supposed to be like or whatever, perfect relationship. We're pursuing that desire that I have in me, and I'm having to substitute it with something that's fictional and hopeful that I can finally get that someday.
Yeah. What's the motivation that sustains? I think if personal income is your only target, I think all of us know this stats. There's a lot of unhealthy and unhappy rich people.
Mm-hmm.
Yet maybe all of us without intention are going to get pulled down the path of, well, just a little bit more. I'll be a little more comfortable. I'll give as soon as I have this in the bank or once we do these things. What have you learned about kind of the sustaining motivation versus temporary?
Say the question again, because I'm tempted to chase another rabbit. So I want to narrow down to the question you're asking.
I think purpose is a better driver to accomplish your full potential when compared to something temporary, your personal income. Even though the personal income is very tangible, and when you get it, and it feels good, and it leads to some nice things statistically. And I think a lot of the stories we hear is like, but that doesn't sustain. That's not going to take you where you want to go.
As you're talking about it, what comes to mind is the hard part is when I'm trying to live out my purpose, when I'm practicing, is this my purpose? I may be learning some skills in living out purpose in a particular way in life, but it's not my full purpose. It's not my what I call my highest and best. So I did a lot of things, even in healthcare, around mission and purpose that weren't my ultimate purpose. But they were training for me, and it was the fact that I'm not going to wait until I reach this level of income to start giving money away. In fact, the data shows that the more income we make, the lower percentage of giving we do. And so, if I'm really going to be disciplined about being less of me and more of God, then I'm trying to give whatever I've got a little bit of now. And so then I don't have to get to this ultimate place to realize that, what if I'm not doing it right there, right? I'm doing practice along the way. I'm giving of myself now. I'm giving time. I'm giving energy. I'm giving resources into something, a fraction of something probably. I don't have 7 hours or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week capacity to do that. But I can be in a healthy role and then be exploring those things as a part of it as I go along the way.
What would be, as we wrap up, kind of the challenge? I think there's a soft way to present this message and talk about
Mm-hmm.
it, and I think at times it's like, our closest friends speak the most truth.
Mm.
What's the warning? What's the pitfall to avoid when it comes to this idea of there's no mission without margin?
I think the thing I run back to is that margin is the fuel for mission. Margin is one of the tools that I've got to have. I've got to have capacity, got to have time. I got to make time. I don't have time. I have to make time. I have to prioritize in such a way that I make time for it. And once I start doing that, do I have margin? Am I running the business in such a way that it's strong enough and healthy enough that it can fuel mission? Now, I think the other aspect is we don't carve out enough time to understand what that mission could be. It may not be. I may not be able to ultimately figure it out today, but I'm going to start figuring it out today. What it's going to look like for me to really live on mission. So I think there's two attributes to that. There's, do I really work hard enough, smart enough, and do the things, the best practices in such a way that actually create the level of margin that is comparable, that is healthy, that is strong, and then resist the pull of that, because that it's a river that's flooded, that's flowing, right? There's a pull of that profitability and that margin that's going to pull me into that and make me just focused on that. I have to simultaneously create this resistance where I'm going to stay on the bank of that river and watch the river and be amazed by it, maybe put a canoe in it from time to time or raft. But for the most part, I'm really going to focus on my mission. My mission is my core driver. My margin is my fuel.
Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate you, brother. You always challenge me,
Thanks.
and hopefully everybody listening, we are not saying take your foot off the gas. Be an impressive, inspiring entrepreneur and business owner, but don't forget why you're doing it. And I think the bigger the mission, the greater the motivation, the resilience to the cause when things do not go as planned. You can stay the course. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.